Hello everybody and welcome to Talkin Chalk. I'm Ken Berthelot. On this week's edition of Talkin Chalk, we'll look back at the career of a very successful South Louisiana high school coach. Brian Gueniot was one of the best baseball and football coaches ever to coach at Vandebilt Catholic High School in Houma. On today's show, we'll look back at his career and talk to a few of the people whose lives were changed because they played for and were coached by Brian Gueniot. All of that coming your way right after this on Talkin Chalk. Welcome back to Talkin Chalk. Brian Gueniot could have played at Terrebonne or Vandebilt Catholic High School, but a new high school opened up in Houma, South Terrebonne, and Gueniot and his brothers chose that high school because of a coach named Buddy Marcello. Marcello had a big influence on Brian Gueniot, who then passed much of that on to young men he coached like Martin False and David Fake. Let's find out why. You grew up working hard as an athlete here in Terrebonne Parish in Houma, Louisiana, and you probably grew up thinking you might play football at the big old public school at Terrebonne. But suddenly it's time to go to high school. South Terrebonne's on the scene, and you have to go play at South Terrebonne High School. Was that a disappointment for you to some? So did you dream about playing at Terrebonne or another school?
Not at all. In fact, my twin brother Bruce and I had the option, because we were playing at Houma Junior High in 9th grade, we had the option of we could stay at Terrebonne or we could go to South Terrebonne. The deciding factor, when a guy by the name of Buddy Marcello, Coach Marcello, got the head coaching job and came to visit us, we knew we wanted to play for him. Thus our decision to go to South Terrebonne.
Buddy Marcello, a great football coach.
Yes.
Some people say Buddy Marcello, even a better baseball coach. Was that a deciding factor in you choosing South Terrebonne?
Oh, that made it very easy, because those were my two loves, football and baseball. And to play both sports for him was just a dream come true.
What did Buddy Marcello leave with you that made you a successful person and a successful football player and coach?
One of the things he did, Ken, when I was a sophomore, when we first got started, I'd never played quarterback. And he told me, he said, "You're going to be my quarterback." Now here's what he also said. He said, "You have to know what everyone does on every play." And I tell you, he really did me a favor, because I became a student of the game, really understanding not only what we're doing, but why we were doing it. And I think thus my love for coaching and for teaching. And it all got instilled from him early on. Same thing in baseball. I played shortstop for him, and he told me, he said, "Brian, you're the quarterback of this baseball team." He said, "You're the one who's got to help make things go." So he was a wonderful guy to play ball for.
The intangibles, that's the tangibles. What intangibles did he leave with you that made you a better coach?
I tell you, one of the things he always told me, he says, "You got to have fun at what you're doing." He said, "You've got to work hard, but you've got to have fun." He was one of those guys that made practice fun. Not many of us enjoyed practice, but you look forward to it, because with him, you never knew what was going to come next. He made it fun, he made it worthwhile. With him, you could always see the big picture.
Right out of college, you get a job here at Vandebilt.
Yes.
You're a young coach coming in. Not all high school players can accept or would accept a very young coach. How did you handle that?
That was interesting, because I was a football assistant. And by the way, I got to work with some wonderful folks. Tommy Thompson, Melvin Spinell, Gerald Albert. I even got to work with Bo Kennard, one of my neighbors, and we grew up together, so it was just a great experience. But in that first year, at midterm, they asked me to take over the head baseball job. Now, there were very few starters coming back, I think only 3. 2 of those decided not to play. Now, one was injured, broke a leg, a great athlete, Mike Robichaux. Another one decided he didn't want to play his senior year. It could have been that he didn't want to play for a new coach coming on board. So it was amazing. My very first year, I had basically a green team, a young team. But we said, you know, that's how we're going to start it. That way I can put my philosophy to work, what I believe in, and the way I want to coach the people and things that we want to do and get accomplished. So it was great.
Brian came to Vandebilt my sophomore year. It was in 1968 he came to Vandebilt. Actually, I believe just right out of college. We didn't think that at the time, but I think he was just, you know, right out of college. So yeah, he was there our sophomore year.
Coming out of college, did you have a lot of respect? Hey, here's this young guy coming out of college. Did the team respect him?
Well, you know, I think they did. And I remember I was a sophomore, so I wasn't playing a whole lot. And Brian, football-wise, was the offensive backfield quarterbacks coach. I played the line, so I didn't have a lot of interaction with Brian during the first football season. He did become our head baseball coach my sophomore year. And that's really when I got to work and know Brian very well. But yeah, once you met Brian, you immediately respected him, no matter how old he was at the time, because he was a very strict disciplinarian, and so it didn't take you long to respect him.
I think he was prepared. I think when you have a coach who is prepared, like he was, when he came into the meeting room and he sat us down as players, and we sat down and he started on the chalkboard, or he got us in situations on the baseball field where we were doing situational stuff, you knew that when you were going through it, that he knew what he was doing. Some coaches fake it pretty well. They could go out there and bring you through the process, but when you're reading into them, you know that you may have known a little bit more than the coach. And we all have had coaches like that, no names mentioned. Mm-hmm. But when Brian got you on the field or went through a practice session and he told you this is the way you do it, you knew doggone well that's the way you do it. The changes that he brought to the program, how did it affect the program? What did it personally do to you and the team?
Well, I can tell you from a baseball standpoint, it was a tremendous difference. We had for a couple of years, coaches that were football coaches that sort of took on the baseball program because they had to, and their hearts really weren't in it. Brian was a baseball coach. You got to remember, Brian played high school ball with one of the best baseball coaches here in Terrebonne Parish. That was Buddy Marcella. So Brian learned from the best. And so he brought a lot of those things to our baseball program. And we had I would call it an average team my sophomore year. But one of the things that Brian brought to the program was he could take younger kids, like myself at that time. And I think his goal was to basically bring us up to the point when we got to be seniors, we would be very competitive.
Did you ever, with Brian Gueniot as a coach, go into a game feeling like you were underprivileged or just the underdog?
No, that was not a thought process that, first of all, we were ever allowed to think. We went into every game thinking that we would win, knowing that we would win, and expecting to win. And anything short of that was not acceptable. And I think we go back to the preparation of what we did. Naturally, we didn't have the greatest athletes in the world. We had a good class of overachieving good athletes, probably some above average. But other schools we played had speed. We didn't have a whole lot of speed on our team, but what we did have was a desire to win. We emulated him, and he hated to lose. Mm-hmm. We hated to lose. You put a coach who hates to lose and players who hate to lose together, you get a winning record.
Brian Gueniot, a successful math teacher, a successful baseball coach, and a successful football coach. We'll take a look at the baseball coaching side of Brian Gueniot when we come back on Talkin Chalk on WHNO TV 20 Sports. Welcome back to Talkin Chalk. As good as a football coach on the high school level as Brian Gueniot was, baseball was his favorite sport. Brian led Vandebilt to a state championship. Mike Fake remembered distinctly how Brian Gueniot coached them all the way to the title. What sticks out in your mind best about the road to the state championship trophy?
Well, we had a couple of young junior pitchers who were our pitching staffs, and we were playing Double-A back then, and we were in the New Orleans district. But we would always seem to play just to notch ahead of those guys. They had some very talented players, had guys that were recruited all over the state, but we were able to always eke out a win whenever we played them, both in football and baseball. So our season could have really been a 500 season. It turned out that we always found a way to win those games through the district, and a lot of it had to do with the discipline, the drive, the competitiveness that Coach Gueniot had instilled in us since we were sophomores. And I think that's why we were able to prevail through the district season. As we got into the playoffs, actually played a couple of teams that really weren't that good. We were fortunate. We were able to get through the first couple of rounds. And I don't know how it's done anymore in the Double-A classifications, but back then you played a state championship, you played a semifinal game and a finals game the next day. We played in Opelousas that year, and played our semifinals game on a Friday. And probably one of the fondest memories I have is we hadn't even come to bat yet in the first inning of our semifinals game, and we were losing 4-0. And I remember Brian coming out from the dugout, because we had our ace pitcher on the mound. And I remember Brian coming to the dugout, and we were infielders, and we all met at the pitcher's mound. We weren't quite sure what was going on. And he looked at us and said, "I hate to do this to you," to our pitcher. His name is Phil. He said, "I hate to do this, Phil, but I got to take you out." And looked at us and basically said, "We're going to win this game."
We changed pitches. It was early on that we made a change, and we went with, in fact, I had Philip Lodger, who was our ace, went with Don Same, who was, they talk about 1 and 2, there was 1A and 1B. And Don Same did a great job, which then gave us Philip for the next day. We
ended up coming back and winning that game. Of course, the next day, we start the state championship, and our ace pitcher is ready to go.
What happens is sort of like business, Ken, is that when things aren't going well, you better change something. And I think the baseball players really rallied behind it, got control of it, and we went on to win the ball game.
In that state championship game?
Yes.
You got a hit or two, didn't you?
Yeah, I got a couple of hits. We actually sort of beat up on this team pretty good. It wasn't really a close game, but it was very much an exciting game just to be part of that. And it's like an experience that you never forget.
Looking back at your baseball players, they look back at you and say, "He made us better men, he made us better people, and he instilled a pride in us as athletes that we didn't know we could have." When you consider that, when you think about those words from your players, when you go back, is there anything you do differently?
No, there wouldn't be. If I do anything differently, it may be stay in it just a little bit longer, because I have really missed it. What I do privately now, I still coach people, but it's not the same as coaching football or baseball. And working with tremendous athletes, Ken. And I appreciate what these athletes have to say, but let me tell you, we had a lot of great athletes here at Vandebilt Catholic. We had a lot to work with. When we come back, we'll see more of Brian Gueniot, and right after this on Talkin Chalk on WHNO TV 20 Sports. Welcome back to Talkin Chalk. Though Brian Gueniot now lives in New Orleans, he still visits family in Houma, Louisiana, and often drops by Vandebilt just to check on the football program and the baseball program. Everybody at Vandebilt still remembers Brian Gueniot. Did you enjoy coaching football or baseball more, and why? Well, it was interesting. I love both. One of the things I really loved about baseball is you didn't have to be the fastest, you didn't have to be the strongest, you didn't have to be the heaviest. A lot of it was games are won and lost between the ears. the mental aspect, and that's the thing I really enjoyed working on. And I felt like our baseball team was always mentally prepared. Football, you know this, Ken, you can be mentally prepared, but you run into a steam shovel out there that you just cannot put up enough force against. They outweigh you, they outmuscle you, they just outplay you. And there's nothing you can do about it. But baseball, it's a lot more between the ears. And being able to take the game and realize that it's the little things we can work on and be so good at doing.
Best memory of football coaching here at Vandebilt?
Oh, I'd have to say, I guess my last year here, there was a game against Berwick High School. That the year before, we got drummed. We got drummed in Berwick. They ran up the score. We got beat 40-0. Walking off the field, their fans were really giving us the raspberries, man. It was terrible. Priest with us, they were yelling at him in obscenities.
He wanted to fight everybody in the stands at Berwick. So the players, we were going, you can't, get him in, hurry. The assistant coaches were getting him in, got him in, but the steam was coming out of his ear.
Oh, it was terrible. I went after one of them and I was held back. I know I shouldn't have done that, but I guess that's the passion I had. So I knew that they had to come to us the next year. And we had a great ball club that next year because I had such a young ball club.
Berwick comes to Vandebilt the next year. It's 35-0 with 4 minutes to go in the game.
Vandebilt's leading.
Vandebilt's winning. Reversal. The same exact score, just reversed in our favor. We have the ball. One of the assistants comes up to him. You want to kneel, sit on it? Nope. We're going to score a touchdown.
And it was kind of late in the ball game, and we decided we needed to put some more points on the board, and we ended up beating them 44-0.
So he was hell-bent and determined not only to even the score, but to get ahead on the score, and he did. Very competitive.
My job as a coach is to be there for my student athletes. And if I can't back them up, then shame on me. And there was no reason for those fans to treat our athletes that way.
When you return to Vandebilt Stadium here, does it still stir great memories, the football stadium, of your coaching days?
Oh, absolutely, Ken. In fact, one of the great things that they've added to it, which is remarkable, this entire physical complex is just tremendous. With the coaching days, and then the great thing too, with the football stadium, when they had done some remodeling, did some different things, they named it after Coach Buddy Marcella, who was my high school coach and mentor. So, I mean, to me, it even has double and triple meanings now.
What is it about Brian Gueniot as a coach, as a person, as your mentor, one of your mentors in high school that you've taken with you that's helped make you the man you are today, Martin Phelps?
Think about what you do before you do it. Ron is very meticulous. He's a math teacher. So,
logic.
Yeah, I mean, just think about what you're going to do before you do it. Make sure all your ducks in a row and be prepared. Whatever you do, go into it being prepared. If you're not prepared, you're going to look foolish.
One of the things that I've always said about Brian is that as much of a disciplinarian as he was, and he was very organized, you got to remember he was a math teacher, so it was black or white. There was no gray. But one of the things he was very good at is he never embarrassed you. He would jump you. He would jump your case if you did something wrong, as good as the next guy. Okay, but one of the things he did, and I can remember distinctively on many occasions, he never embarrassed you. He didn't embarrass you in front of your parents. He didn't embarrass you in front of your other ball players. He didn't embarrass you in front of the other teachers. If he had a problem with you, he dealt with you one-on-one, either in the coach's office or somewhere in the outfield or wherever it took place. And I can always, and when you walked away from him, you kind of felt good about getting chewed out. So I just always thought that as I matured and got older, and then I got into business and got into my working life, that I hope that I would be able to do that with any of my coworkers, or now that I own part of a business, that are people that work for me, that I never really want to embarrass anybody. You want to make those corrections, you want to take care of those people, you want to make sure that they understand what they did wrong, but you just don't want to embarrass them.
But I think the whole idea, Ken, of getting people to work together. And I think the state championship baseball team in '71 with 5 seniors, all 5 of those seniors assumed a leadership position. And to me, that's the only way it's going to work, to have that caliber of baseball team when everyone's willing to work together. Because what happens is, we didn't have any superstars, but you put those guys together and we were unbeatable because these guys played together. They cared about one another.
And they all learned to admire you. They all say they took different things from you that helped them become successful people, successful businessmen, and pretty doggone good high school athletes. You hear these players say this about you. How does it make you feel when you look back?
Feel great. Feel great about it, because the interesting thing, and I used to always say that in high school athletics, after the years, 10, 20, 30 years out, you may not remember your record, but I think you're going to remember the things that instilled in you, just how to be a better person. And that's the thing my dad always instilled in us boys growing up. And that's what I felt like the only thing I could really transfer to other people is try to help them with life. That hopefully down the road there would be a wonderful role model in life for other people.
What a great high school coaching career at Vandebilt Catholic by Brian Gueniot, who after his retirement from high school coaching and teaching math, became a very successful corporate coach, coaching many people to a successful business career. Brian, thank you for all of the people you've helped coach to a successful life, personally and in business. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Talking Chalk. I'm Ken Berthelot. Join us next week for more Talking Chalk on WHNO TV 20 Sports.